Demand for lithium has never been stronger, with Goldman Sachs calling it the new gasoline, suggesting demand could triple by 2025. That's according to a quote on the Cornish Lithium website. The privately held Cornish Lithium is a mineral exploration and development company focused in on the environmentally sustainable extraction of lithium from geothermal brines in the historic mining district of Cornwall. Its founder and chief executive is Jeremy Wrathall, who joins us now here in the studio. It's good to talk to you, Jeremy. Thanks indeed for dropping by. In fact, it's a good moment because you've just updated shareholders. I say you're privately owned, aren't you? But you do have shareholders. And you've just updated those interested on your website.
We have.
And this drilling campaign all sounds very exciting. So you're going for more opportunity.
We are. So we've just completed our first test hole, which was very much a scientific endeavour to see if we could actually do this, and whether there were lithium-enriched brines deep in the ground as we suspected from historical records. We've confirmed that there are. We've confirmed that they, in fact, there's probably much more than we expected. Anyone who wants to read that, it's on our website on our news tab, so that read that update if they wish to. But really exciting times, and we're actually in discussions with a couple of potentially commercial partners for that.
Just to give us a little bit of history, I think what you've been, is it 4 years now Cornish Lithium has been around?
Yep, absolutely. 4 years.
In that time, what have you been doing to lead you up to this point?
Well, we started off the very early days just assembling all the historical data that we could, and there's an enormous amount. We've got something like 50,000 historical mine records and data, then compiling that into a three-dimensional model, using some very innovative software from New Zealand, of all places, because they do a lot of geothermal energy there already, so we could take that software and use it in Cornwall. And then once we could incorporate all that data, we could then plan our drilling campaign very accurately to be able to hit the structures that we believed were hosting this lithium-enriched brine. And indeed, sure enough, we did. But the important thing is we hit a lot more structures than we expected. And so we carried on our drill campaign right down to 1.1 kilometres rather than stopping at 800 metres. So really exciting time. So it's been an iterative journey of building data and then proving it up using modern drilling techniques.
What about the brine when you take it out and you've got your lithium within this solution, presumably? Yep. Then what happens to it? You take it off to a processing plant?
Well, yes. I mean, we'd probably put a processing plant on site, right. And what it would use is what's called a direct lithium extraction, or DLE as it's become known, which very interestingly Bill Gates and his Breakthrough Energy Ventures Foundation just funded exactly that technology in the US, a company called Lilac Solutions, last week. So really it's extremely topical. We may well talk to those people, we may well talk to others, but we're having discussions with a number of potential partners who can extract that lithium directly from the brine.
My understanding is, having spoken to you off camera, is that there is also the potential for lithium within the major rock structures within Cornwall, which I think many will know is mostly granite, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Is that a realistic possibility as well?
Well, it's really interesting because the lithium, the granite underneath Cornwall extends all the way from the Scilly Isles all the way to Dartmoor, so it's underlying most of Cornwall. It's heavily enriched in lithium. It's known to be the largest granite, lithium-enriched granite in the whole of Europe. Scientific papers to prove that. And really, we are looking for areas where it's super enriched, and there was a mine operating in the St Austell region during the war, extracting lithium for submarine air conditioning. We are fortunate enough to have that mine on some of the mineral rights that we have an agreement on, and we're actually drilling that at the moment to evaluate whether that could also be a source of lithium. And the techniques to extract that are also being rapidly developed around the world. So we believe it's an exciting time for both the brine and potentially for the hard rock.
Just remind us, why lithium? I mean, we have spoken actually on another interview about this, and you have given us some detail, but just remind us what the importance is about lithium, because it is a metal that we're talking more and more about. I think mineral we're talking more about.
Yeah, exactly. I think the importance of lithium is that it really is the one metal which can facilitate the transaction or the transition to low carbon, zero carbon, because the move to low carbon depends entirely on the ability to be able to store power in a battery. So if you generate renewable power from the wind or solar, it has to be stored because the wind doesn't always blow and it goes dark at night. So if you can store that in a battery, like an electric vehicle or a battery in your house, that facilitates that transition. The one element which is essential in those batteries is lithium, and that's why it's so important, that it is the one metal that facilitates the transition.
Talk to us a little bit about where the company's going. As I say, you're privately owned at the moment.
Yeah.
What's the share structure? Because you do have shareholders on board, private shareholders, don't you?
We do. We originally raised money with a group of high net worth shareholders, all of whom were with a mining background, who knew the risks that they were taking on. Of course, any new company is a risky company. And then last year we raised money through crowdfunding through Crowdcube, which was enormously successful. We were delighted with the results. We raised £1.4 million, and that's brought us in over 1,200 new shareholders, right from people who put in £10 because they wanted to be part of it, right up to people who put in a lot more than that. So, that's the way the company's going. We will eventually have to raise more money.
Will you do it the same way? I mean, that's obviously proved a very successful way and presumably relatively inexpensive.
Well, it's very cost effective, let's put it that way, and we were delighted with the results, so we probably would go crowdfunding again through Crowdcube, which they did a great job.
And how would people hear about this?
Good question. Probably through Crowdcube. We've got a very, very large network of people who they advertise to, have opportunities to, through Crowdcube, through our website, and through direct emails and contacts. Yeah.
Let's take a look at the big picture and the demand and supply for lithium, because that is obviously critical to the success ultimately of the business.
Yeah.
Ultimately, also, you want to sell it into the market.
Exactly.
What about the demand and supply?
Really interesting. At the moment, what happened was, because the lithium price went sky high in 2017-18, it stimulated a lot of new capacity to come on stream, which is quite interesting. That most of it came from Australia. It was hard rock. It was literally mining, but most of that production has to be shipped all the way to China and then processed using high carbon coal, gas. So it's not the most environmentally friendly route. But anyway, we are in oversupply at the moment for certain grades of lithium. For battery grade lithium or battery quality lithium, the price still remains very robust, particularly in Japan and Korea. But for the Chinese price, has been really, really challenged. I think we're going to come out of that oversupply in the next year or so, because the global acceptance of electric vehicles is growing, particularly when Tesla is now, I think, probably the biggest car company in the world. A huge increase in sales, and we really are heading into a battery revolution. And in fact, the British government have mandated that we won't be able to buy petrol and diesel cars from 2035 nowadays. So really, that transition is accelerating. Demand for lithium is going to rise, and we hope not only that we'll be selling into a market which is undersupplied, but also that the market will differentiate between low carbon sources and high carbon sources, and that's already happening.
Yeah. As we speak, we're going through the coronavirus. How much of an impact has that already had to the demand and supply, and could it have as we look from this point? I mean, we're seeing pretty much a relatively big lockdown in China, and we're getting news of other countries as well locked down. Let's assume that it does get a little bit worse than where we are at the moment.
Yeah.
Does it have an impact on prices of rare earths and minerals generally, and lithium?
It certainly does. I mean, it's a two-edged sword. There's two aspects of the coronavirus. One is that it has really crimped demand because lots of people are staying indoors and not buying a car. So that's bad, and that will exacerbate the oversupply, and probably I would imagine prices will maybe fall or stabilise. But the other thing is that it's focusing people's attention onto the supply chain. So can we rely in the UK, Europe, on an economy which has been paralysed by the coronavirus? And we are reliant on China for our lithium supplies at the moment. Is that acceptable? I don't think it is. We've really got to think about our own domestic supplies. Europe, in fact, the EU is way ahead of the UK on that. They're throwing an enormous amount of money into the supply chain, trying to stimulate a domestic supply of lithium in Europe, throwing, I think, €3 billion on that situation. So really, the UK government, I think, needs to think about that very hard. But coronavirus has been an interesting one because it's crystallised a lot of people's minds, focused a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. Back on Cornish Lithium, where are you going to be at the end of the year?
Good question. By the end of the year, we will have finished both of our drilling programs. In fact, we've finished them very, very quickly. We will be continuing to talk to potential joint venture partners about the commercialisation of both those technology, or both those opportunities. And I think hopefully we'll have a test plant on site at our first drill site by the end of this year. I think that's a very realistic possibility. So we could actually be extracting small amounts, but real bits of Cornish lithium.
One final question is that I think we already know that you have aspirations to be a fully listed company. Is that still on the horizon?
We said to shareholders who came in for the crowdfunding, obviously at the moment they can't sell, because we have EIS, they probably don't want to anyway because of the tax benefits. But we said obviously we need liquidity so people can realise their investments, and we said that we would look towards a listing within 3 years. So that was from August last year, 3 years' time. I think we have tried to run the company as if it was a listed company already anyway. Our accounts are disclosed on Companies House. Our shareholder updates are regularly disclosed on our website. We're working with companies like SRK for our technical work to try and do everything to the highest possible standard with the aim of eventually listing.
Oh, interesting story, but thanks indeed for dropping by, and it's good to hear about the update. That's Jeremy Wrathall. He's Chief Executive and founder of Cornish Lithium.